Well, hello there, and welcome to another episode of Rose Reads. I'm Rose Solari, co founder of Squire Publishing. I'm a poet, fiction writer, editor, teacher, uh, literary enthusiast, and back again today. I can't believe this is my 10th Facebook live stream. Some of you were with me when I started this the first Wednesday of April, April 1st, National Poetry Month, and I thought I'd maybe do it for the month. But we've been getting such great responses and so many wonderful views and such great comments that we're just going to keep going. So, just a reminder, Alan Squire Publishing, you can find us at alansquirepublishing.com. You can find us on Twitter at Alan Squire Pub. You can find me on Twitter at Poet Rose. If you're liking these, please share them, retweet them, like them, tell your friends. I can't thank you all enough for how much you've supported the press in this difficult time. We have been making sales from direct from our website thanks to your generosity and your enthusiasm. And right now, through the end of May, our books are still all half price. So go to the site and load up. Everything's half price. As of June 1st, we're going to change that up, but we'll still have sales going on. And we're going to keep good sales on for as long as this virus lasts and for as long as we're struggling, because we want to be sure you have good books to read. Also, remember that our ebooks are all priced at either 99 cents or $1.99 right now. So if you're tight on cash and you want some good books, that's a pretty good deal. All right, well, I am here today to talk about Santa Fe Writers Project. I'm sure some of you have heard of this wonderful indie press. Jimmy and I, when we were founding Alan Squire Publishing, were introduced to Andrew Gifford in, I think, 2009. Um, Andrew founded Santa Fe Writers Project in 1998. So by that point, he'd been going at it for quite some time. He's had the press now for 22 years. A mutual friend said, if you want to start a press, this is the guy you need to talk to. And boy, were they right. Since we met Andrew, we've learned so much about the publishing process. He has helped us so much to get ASP off the ground. And he himself is a real inspiration because he continues to publish in good times and in bad an excellent list of books, really, really fine list of books. So if you bop on over to sfwp.com, you will see the wonderful books he has for sale, including the two titles I'm going to be focusing on today: Wendy J. Fox's novel, If the Ice Had Held, and Elizabeth Geoghegan's collection of short stories and a novella called Eightball. Also, and I think this is so cool, if when you check out at SFWP, if you enter the coupon code Solari, my last name, Solari, you'll get 25% off your total purchase. I'm very excited to be a coupon code. I think my dad would have loved it. I can see my dad calling his friends and saying, Rosie's selling books. Get out there and use our name. So get out there and use our name. Thanks, Dad. Anyway, I'm going to start with this beautiful novella, Wendy J. Fox's If the Ice Has Held. Wendy is just a tremendous writer. She reminds me a bit of Alice Munro, actually, in her beautifully quiet perceptions of family life and family dynamics in particular. Um, there's just a wonderful voice, or rather set of voices, that runs through this novel, which alternates perspectives. And if you're a writer, you know how challenging that is. She weaves between 4 or 5 perspectives throughout the novel, all revolving around a mystery in a family unit of who is actually a woman named Melanie's mother. Melanie is a character I deeply admire in this book. I admire the character herself. I became very attached to her, but I also really admire the way Wendy portrayed her. And I'm going to share a little piece of one of the Melanie sections. This is after her parents have gone through a rather ugly divorce. Melanie is 13 at this point. And listen for the way Wendy describes people and places. She's got a great ear and a great eye for what people say and do. And I think the descriptions here of the two homes that Melanie goes back and forth between now that her parents have divorced is something that many of us sadly can relate to, but is also brilliantly painted and very, very close to the bone. Very, very powerful. So let's take a look at Melanie one summer. In their apartment, her mother still cooked, even if it was cheap stuff like bulk frozen chicken breasts and canned sauce that she boiled down with leftover wine and garlic because buying 6 pounds of tomatoes was too expensive. Melanie would sit and fiddle with her schoolwork while her mother sauteed. There was a gray light over the kitchen table and a gray light over the stovetop. The walls were gray from all of the fat that had been smoked off of all of the meals that had been prepared by them and by previous tenants, and Melanie's eyes were gray from the drudgery of school. Sometimes she went to her father's. So far, it was during school breaks. He started traveling more, and he said his job made it too difficult to watch over her, although she was almost 13 and did not think she needed much watching over. He also said that he had to work more to pay child support, but Melanie knew that this was not true because she had found his uncashed checks tucked into an envelope in the kitchen junk drawer when she needed some batteries. His house was much nicer than the apartment, but the time passed very slowly. He had a small outdoor pool, and she liked to sit by it, the aqua reflected back at her, the water very still and stinking of chlorine. She liked to watch the shine when a small breeze came up, the tiny ripples when a wasp landed and broke the surface. In her bathing suit, she read magazines, the pages curling in the heat, and she studied the horoscopes. She was a Cancer, the crab, and she thought a lot about walking sideways between her two parents, between the life she had now and the home they had had before. Sometimes that first summer after the divorce, her father wanted to get out of the house. That was how he would put it. Let's get out of the house. He bought her a horseback riding lesson on a mangy, overworked pony. He took her to the park by the river where they dutifully licked ice cream cones until there was nothing left of hers but a mushy cone. Once they went to Denver and he sent her up in a carnival hot air balloon while he stayed on the ground. She knew she was supposed to pretend that she did not know why her mother had left her father, but she saw the gloss on his eye when he looked at the girl taking tickets for the ride. She had on a dirty shirt and did not seem much older than her. The carnival girl's father operated the balloon, and Melanie did not want to go up in the air with him, but she did anyway, peeking over the basket at the man, as the man worked the burner and her own father became small. It was a sunny day, and the heat and the propane made her woozy. Her father lived in his house alone, mostly. Occasionally, there was a woman just leaving when her mother dropped her off, or someone pulling up the back drive when she was being picked up. Once Melanie had found a fresh lipstick in the hall bathroom. She put the lipstick in the refrigerator, right by her father's half and half, so he would know she had seen it. In the balloon, she wondered what would have happened if she had asked the carnival girl to come with her, if they had left their leering fathers on the ground to distract themselves, swapping stories, while their daughters sailed up until the rope was taut. What if the carnival girl had a penknife in her pocket and she sawed carefully through the tether, slicing the twists of jute one by one until the balloon loosed and the two girls floated away, just another bright spot in the blinding sky. Sorry for the little slip there. But there's so much to admire in this section of this novel. It's hard to pick a section to share with you from this novel because it's just beautifully written all the way through. But to give you some examples of what I love here about Wendy's work. All those repetitions of gray in the beginning, the gray kitchen, the gray lights, the mother's grayish cooking, just that sense of kind of melancholy, isolation, deprivation. And yet when she goes to her father's, yeah, the house is bigger. Yeah, there's a pool, but it's a deprivation of a different kind. She's bored. And we all know that the boredom of adolescent girls can become a very dangerous thing. She's also tremendously insightful for her age, Melanie. She knows her dad's kind of skeevy. And that beautiful fantasy about wishing that she and the other girl could fly away from the leering fathers. What a great phrase. Swapping their stories, we can assume those would be about women, maybe girls. And that the two of them might float away together in a bright sky all by themselves. I just find that all truly beautifully done and very moving. I became very attached to this character. And I was happy to discover, I mean, she has some troubles later on, but she keeps her sense of humor throughout, and she keeps her her instinct for survival, which also has to do with her wit. And I'm going to share just this little bit that shows that later. She's on a business trip. At this point, Melanie's 35. She's on a business trip. She's good at her job, and she likes traveling for work. And this little snippet, I think, will tell you uh, quite a bit about the person Melanie becomes. She liked to travel. She liked the burn of the planes and the disconnection, out of range from her ever beeping email, and her body tucked in snugly to the warm seats. It made her feel aware. Here are my arms right against my sides. Here are my knees clamped together to avoid the knees of my fellow travelers. She empathized with the families who struggled with their overpacked luggage and their cranky children. People complained about screaming toddlers, but she put on her headphones. It's their age, it's their ears plugged from the pressure, she sometimes muttered. They can't control it. Give them some gum. Even without kids of her own, she was sure they were generally not crying for the sole purpose of being annoying. And if they were, she tipped her mini serving of vodka to them in acknowledgement of their success. I just love that. Anyway, I highly recommend If the Ice Had Held by Wendy J. Fox. You can get it at sfwp.com. And if you use the coupon code at checkout, Solari, Solari, you get 25% off everything you buy. So get out there and buy books, baby, and use my name. I'm very excited. I've never been a coupon code before. I guess we could have done it ourselves, but it's more fun if somebody else does it. Anyway, if you're just joining us, we're at the halfway mark of Rose Reads. This is our 10th episode. I'm Rose Solari of Squire Publishing, a small press with big ideas. If you're enjoying these broadcasts, please like them, follow them, share them, tell your friends. Today's episode is devoted to our publishing partners at Santa Fe Writers Project and the wonderful books that they publish. I'm focusing on two books in particular, but I'm going to mention two more right now. They have two other excellent short story collections if you are a lover of short stories. One by Simon Froiland called Milk, which is just full of these clean, knife blade, sharp stories about brothers and relationships and navigating the world outside and the interior world. It's a beautiful book translated by Kyle Semmel. And I was also thrilled to hear today that Andrew has signed Steve Iowanu to another book. Steve will have a novel coming out with Andrew in a couple of years. I don't think they're sure on the title yet, but I believe it's the origin story of the Lone Ranger, which sounds really exciting. And Steve has right out now and available for you to consume immediately an excellent collection of stories called Muscle Cars. We are super fond of Steve at ASPHQ. He's been a great supporter of us, and he's a wonderful guy. And Muscle Cars is a terrific read. Really, really fine, fine book. Anyway, my next book is Eight Ball by Elizabeth Geoghegan. This is the cover. It's a collection of short stories anchored by a novella. And that's an interesting strategy to construct a book around, and it really, really works. And I want to give kudos to Andrew because I know that many publishers these days are resistant to novellas, especially to a book that combines a novella with short stories. You'll hear people say that's hard to market. I don't know how to do it. Andrew had no problem taking on this wonderful book, and it is a truly fantastic book. I loved Eight Ball. Elizabeth has been blurbed by the famous Lucia Berlin, among others. She probably doesn't need an extra blurb from me, but I'm gonna share my love for this book today anyway. Eight Ball, the novella Eight Ball revolves around a pair of siblings, Quinn and Patrick. If Melanie is inadequately parented, then I would say that Quinn and Patrick are pretty much raised by wolves. They have a violent father. They have a checked out, drug addled mother. Patrick is older than Quinn by a few years, and she adores him. Another aspect of Quinn that I think really permeates this novella in a smart way is that she's a photographer. I have a weakness for stories about women artists. I always have. I don't think we have enough of them. Um, and as some of you know, my own first novel is about a woman painter. So I think one of the things that Elizabeth does really well in here is capture the point of view of an artist. And this is, I think, a lovely moment about Quinn. It's important to note that Patrick gave her first camera. He gave her a Kodak Instamatic for her 7th birthday. And so her brother is not only the agent of her discovering her art form, but as she says here, her muse. When we were kids, Patrick was my muse, suffering my early experiments, standing in awkward poses for hours, listing into and out of the light, or surrendering himself to shadow, allowing me to frame and reframe him again and again. He tolerated the learning curve of each new format, always encouraging me to photograph other people. Since I can remember, the architecture of the face and the landscape of the body have meant more to me than a skyline or an object ever could. A portrait collapses time. It blurs the margin between public and private space, allowing me to connect with people in a way that otherwise I never could. In its silence, a portrait can contain the echo of conversations past. Perhaps, in the best of them, a sibylline glimpse of what lies ahead. How had Patrick known a camera would suit me? Or was it just luck? He does seem to know things. Patrick is an immensely charismatic young man, but also, sadly, becomes addicted to cocaine, probably before he moves to Denver, but certainly while he's living in Denver when we meet him in this book, he's got a pretty serious drug problem. And Quinn is going to school in Boulder and takes a bus down to see her brother one weekend because she's worried about him. Things do not go as she had planned. She wants to be alone with him, but he leaves no time for that. They go to a friend of his house who's another coke dealer. His name is Mandy. And with Mandy and a guy named Scotty, who's Patrick's roommate, Quinn is enlisted to help them cut up a huge quantity of cocaine into 8 balls, grams, half grams, quarter grams. 8 ball is where the novella gets its title and where the book gets its title. So at this point, we have a very frustrated Quinn. And she and Scotty have been sent off on a beer run, on your classic beer run. They're on foot. The only other character I think you need to know in this section to understand what's going on is Nadine, who's kind of Patrick's girlfriend, though it doesn't seem like a particularly loving or healthy relationship, to put it mildly. Um, but this is Quinn. Scotty and I head up to the 7-Eleven to buy more beer and cigarettes. The air has an edge to it, a reminder that winter isn't necessarily over. To me, the night air is bliss, the crisp outline of the trees along the parkway just beginning to bloom, the mountains etched against the lapis sky in the distance. As we walk, he recounts a story about road tripping to a show, something about a speeding ticket in Nevada. Anything that has to do with the Grateful Dead is tedious to me. I know he's just trying to be nice. Scotty and now Mandy are my brother's only friends who haven't tried to sleep with me. For that alone, I like them. But Scotty is the last person Patrick should share a house with. He's got too much money and too much time, always taking one more semester off. When we get back, we follow Mandy back into the cramped kitchen, still in our jackets. He puts the beer in the fridge, then turns and looks at the stack of seals and vials we've sorted. It wouldn't hurt to unload some of this shit before we do it all ourselves, he says. Patrick removes Nadine from his lap and stands up. Right, he says. Little Women. Nadine groans at the name of the band. Mandy reaches over to touch my arm. Stop by any time, little sister. One for the road. Scotty passes out downers like candy. Everybody takes one but me. Nadine scoops up the helmet I'd worn on the ride over, and without so much as a word, I've been relegated to Scotty's Jeep. I don't want my brother driving his motorcycle. And I definitely don't want to get into a vehicle with Scotty, but if I know if I stay in this kitchen, a year might pass. So I follow him, climb in, and fasten my seatbelt. I roll down my window while Scotty fiddles with the cassette player. I'll see you at the club, okay? Patrick says, but his gaze is looking past me. I've spent the whole day and now much of the night waiting for him to really look at me. Waiting for some moment when we would actually talk. I took the bus down here to see him, spent the whole ride preparing a speech I'll never give, some conversation I pretended we'd have that I'm too chicken shit to bring up, but even if I did, what? I'd save him? He'd save me? Is that what I'm hoping for? And the fucking bus. I hadn't been out here 2 months before Patrick borrowed my car and totaled it, wrapping it around a power pole and abandoning it there. The story goes that he left it in the driveway with the keys still in the ignition, a family trait. Somebody nicked it and crashed it. And maybe it really was like that. Who knows? Who cares? I don't care about the fucking car. I just want my brother back. I think that is such just a wonderful, masterfully written passage. I was in tears the first time I got to the end of it. The frustration of that day, and she builds the frustration of that day juxtaposed with flashbacks to their lives when they were younger and when things were a bit brighter for them. She moves with such dexterity and grace. Elizabeth does back and forth between the two timelines as she explores this relationship between the brother and sister. I found there's so much about this to admire. The notion that Scotty and now Mandy are my brother's only friends who haven't tried to sleep with me. For that alone, I like them. It's like, how low are we going to set the bar now, folks? You know, in this strange world that Quinn is inhabiting with this brother who's kind of a ghost to her now. And many of us sadly know how addiction does that. I found that one particular line so moving. I should like them for that. Um, it's just a brilliantly done book. the whole collection. It's very honest. It's a little reminiscent, actually, of Elena Ferrante, who is so well known right now for her Neapolitan quartetto books. It's a bit reminiscent of Elena Ferrante now that I think about it. And Elizabeth, in fact, lives in Rome. So maybe there is an Italian connection there. Anyway, I want to thank you for listening to all of this today. I want to remind you that Eight Ball by Elizabeth Geoghegan and If the Ice Had Held by Wendy J. Fox are available on the Santa Fe Writers Press publishing site. I'd like to also remind you that if you use a coupon code to buy any books from them this week, you can enter my name, Solari, as a coupon code and get 25% off your total order. Also, our big sales at Allen Squire are going to shift after the last day in May. Until then, all our titles are half price on our site. We ship them direct. Amazon isn't shipping. A lot of places aren't shipping right now, but we are. And we appreciate your support so much. Small presses really need you right now, folks. There's a lot of bad news coming our way about distribution outlets shutting down, about avenues to get our books to people attenuated. Some bookstores are going to close. Some businesses are going to close. Some small presses are going to close. Um, but I'm determined that we're not. I'm determined that ASP is sticking around. And I know Andrew Gifford would say the same thing about SFWP. So we thank you all for all you've done. Hang in there. We're going to get to the other side of this. We're going to meet up in real time and read our poems together in real life. I just know it. Um, in the meantime, thank you. Love you. Thanks for listening.